Hi hobby friends, let's talk about skin. If you paint miniatures, chances are at some point you're going to need to do some work on skin. It might just be a single unhelmeted head on a captain, or it could be a horde of shirt-shy cultists like these Kayric acolytes. Either way, it's a good idea to have a plan of action for tackling skin tones. There are two things that make skin tones an interesting challenge for mini painters. First off, they're complex. The range of possible tones created by the interaction of blood, flesh, bone, and the naturally uneven texture of skin is vast and not always intuitive. Secondly, we're very familiar with it. The more familiar something is, the harder it is to get away with mistakes or aberrations. I'm planning on this being a little series looking at some of the different approaches we can take with skin, particularly with what colours we put under it, so consider this a sort of branch of the underpainting series. This time let's look at what happens when we start with red, or more specifically burgundy. I'm doing a batch of 3 to try and catch something of the amazing breadth of people's skin tones, spraying all the minis with Molotow burgundy. When that's done, everyone gets what amounts to a Zenithal highlight with this peach pink semi-transparent ink from Rowney. This is a great base for almost any skin, acting as either the shadow, mid or highlight depending on how dark the final desired tone is. I'm taking a little care with this, trying to get good modulation and keep plenty of that burgundy in our deep shadows. When that's done, the airbrush gets a clean and in goes some transparent raw umber. These old school pigments are great for organic work because, well, they're organic. Raw umber has a rich brown tone with just the slightest green tinge, but still a good, strong, warm feel that makes it pretty perfect for mid to dark skin tones. I'm going for a mid angle on this guy, leaving the peach almost untouched on the highlights. Another clean out of the airbrush, and next up is transparent Raw Sienna, a much lighter, yellower earth tone. We're going for a fairer but still tanned or so-called olive look on this guy, filtering the sienna over pretty much all of the skin areas. Last up, we're going to go for a very, very fair skin tone on this guy, more or less at the limit of what can be considered natural. For that reason, I switch straight to titanium white and very gently brush in some highlights. People with extremely pale skin sometimes get a bluish cast, and the coolness of titanium white should help us emulate that. I also took this opportunity to block in the armour, cloth and shields on all 3 guys. I decided I'd been a little bit heavy-handed with my inks on the first 2 minis, so I went in and re-established the highlights very gently with peach, and with a quick coat of matte varnish to even up the finishes, that's the quick version of skins done. If you're painting a big batch of semi-nudes, I'd say this is probably a pretty acceptable route and doesn't take that long at all. The final time on painting these guys, including the turquoise, gold and leather you see me working on here, was about 2.5 hours or so about 50 minutes per model. We're going to take a look at them now, but stick around because there is another pretty simple step I want to show you at the end. Today's going to be a double reveal kind of a day. So here they are. Starting with the dark skin tone, the burgundy really supports it here and gives it life. It's all too easy to default to just brown when painting dark skin, but that is likely going to leave you with something dull and lifeless. By building up on a red base, you get something that looks much more like skin. Same can be said for this middle guy, who has that yellowish note in his skin supported and somewhat contrasted by the red shadows. And of course, playing with your ratio of shadows to midtones, how much of the sienna you filter over the top, even ink dilution, all these variables can open up a huge range of colours to you with minimal paints. Finally, the pale man, whose burgundy has taken on a purplish feel in places. It really underscores that paleness, but without getting too cartoonish. Generally, on all 3 of these guys, by the way, the backs are the best place to get a real sense of what this skin looks like. Great sculpts, Mr. Workshop. Alright, here's that extra step I mentioned. It's glazing. I've got a palette here of a cool crimson, a fleshy pink, a little pastel violet, some greenish blue, and later I did add a little bit of moss green as well. There's also a healthy puddle of glaze medium. Glazes are great on skins because they add that layered feeling a good looking skin tone should have. On this pale guy, I stick mostly with pure pinks just to give him a little more blood under that skin. With the next guy, I'm looking to try out some green. That may seem weird, but take a look at this, specifically here. Green is a colour that's been used by painters for a long time when tackling skin. The results on this mini were a little bit mixed and look more garish in the photos than they do in real life, but it's something we're definitely going to look at in more detail and try and get right in future installments. Finally, our last guy is getting a glaze of rich purple, mixed from the crimson and Prussian blue that was on my palette. Darker skin tones like this often tend towards purples in the shadows, and this really adds depth to the overall effect. I also threw just a touch of neat crimson over the midtones as well, again to enliven the mini a little bit. Before the final reveal, while you watch this B-roll of my palette, I want to say a massive thanks to the latest patron to join the community, Tom Rea. Thank you, Tom. Your support helps me continue to produce these experiments and videos. And here we go. Very subtle changes from the last set of pics, but skin is a subtle thing, so it's well worth the extra 5 minutes of work, I think. What do you guys think? And what sort of colours are you interested in trying under your skin tones? Let me know in the down below, check out the links for Discord and Patreon in the description, and hit the thumbs up and sub button if you think YouTube should push this video a little bit. See you next time.